So we're gonna have a little discussion here. Their full bios are printed for you, but we have Reverend Hamlin with the Washington National Cathedral. Great seeing you. We have Chris Helfrich, who is with Eat, Learn, Play in California. We have David Banks, who's the Chancellor of the New York City Public School System. And we have Jeff Martin with a lot of things, but including Children's Literacy Project. So great seeing you all. You know, that was obviously a powerful and a heavy film, a lot of things that I'm going to be processing for a long time. Before we really start a discussion and the questions that I have for everybody, I just want to provide some space for any comments or any initial thoughts that you have, kind of any immediate reflections after watching that anybody has.
I've seen it 100 times.
Yeah.
Well, this is my first time seeing it, and all I can say is wow. I mean, it's like a visceral punch. To hear all these stories, to see in the experiences all across the nation, no matter what race, what part of the country, how the lack of literacy and the inability to read, how it plays out in real time in the lives of not just the person who doesn't know how to read, but the effect that it has on their entire family is real. And so I think it sets up for an even more important conversation about now what?
Yeah, Reverend?
Well, there's so many points that I could probably raise and begin. I would say thank you just to be part of this conversation. But when you see a movie like this, you begin right away just saying thank you for the people that are in your life. So many times I have called the name of Mrs. Odom, who was my first grade teacher. And I'm calling it and thinking about her even while I'm sitting here. Grateful to be sitting next to New York. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and grew up in New York City. And so we think about the value and the roles that we play in each other's life. And to be able to look at something like this, you react and realize how much we need each other.
So true. A lot to reflect on. I love the end of the movie, the line where it says, if you teach a child to read, you give a child a chance. Yeah. I just thought that was a great ending to that. I love to talk to people in my district and just ask them, hey, when you were in kindergarten, who was your congressman? No one knows. When you were in kindergarten, but then I asked, but when you were in kindergarten, who was your kindergarten teacher? Everybody knows who their kindergarten teacher was. Everybody.
Listen, part of the problem is if you can ask them in 12th grade, who was your congressman, they still don't know.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. They ask, who are you in the first place? But anyway, the point is everybody feels that connection, right? And it's so important. So, we'll start. The film ends, on a very hopeful note with clips from volunteers who are taking action in their communities, in their schools, serving as reading mentors, underscoring the fact that we can all play a part in responding to this crisis. Our panelists today, and thanks for doing this, you all, just represent a handful of the sectors that can support children's early literacy development. Just, a question for everybody, and we can just see where this conversation goes. But first off, for you, Reverend Hamlin, as a faith leader with Washington National Cathedral, which my understanding is just beginning its focus on early literacy, can you share with us why you and your colleagues felt called to engage in this work and the types of roles that you envision yourself playing?
First,
and kind of what you're doing?
First, when we talk about being involved in each other's life, I have to say how I was touched, really, sitting next to Jeff. He's an individual that you meet, and right away his passion for what he's doing comes across. Then it moves to how he talks about his family and the value of family. Those shared values that many of us who are sitting here right now, we have relationships, we have family, and then you can start thinking about all of that generationally, about children, grandchildren, and start looking for further out. Certainly, as we met through the Washington National Cathedral, there are many issues that we are seeking to address and to give voice to and to elevate. I've said to Jeff, and I think I said to someone this evening, that this is not a hard road to go down. To sit here and to look at this particular film, hopefully we've all been moved. I don't know how you watch a movie like this and not be moved or not think about someone that you have met. Before, I'm still full-time clergy, but when I was full-time pastoring, in the faith community, we get to deal with the results. We sit with families who have been sentenced, generations, and talking to them. And it leaves an impression upon your life where hopefully all of us in here are saying, we've got to do something. So I'm grateful to be here and part of this conversation, that we might all take a look at where our feet are planted. And as I always tell everyone, just bloom where your feet are planted.
Amen. That's good. Next question for Chris Helfrich. You lead Stephen Aisha Curry's philanthropic endeavors with children in Oakland, California. What can you tell us about what Eat, Learn, Play is doing to support children's well-being and educational success in Oakland, and your thoughts on what nonprofit organizations can be doing? And I've heard a little bit about what you all are up to. It seems incredible, but would you just fill everybody in on the project you're undertaking?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of this. This means a lot to us. Stephen and Aisha, we launched Eat, Learn, Play in 2019, and really the mission is all about uplifting this next generation, making sure they have the resources, the support, the love that they need to reach their full potential. Our feet are planted in Oakland, California, which is a community that's like overflowing with talent, but also in an amazing amount of need. And so the Currys, from day one, were adamant that we're laser focused in Oakland and that we work on these three issues that are, key vital ingredients for a happy, healthy childhood. We do a lot of work with food security because, 39% of Oakland students live in food insecure households. We do a lot of work providing safe places and access to play. That came from Steph, but obviously because, play is such a fundamental part of character development in kids. And then for us, it took us a couple of years, but once we got ourselves educated and really listened to the community's needs, early literacy, right, became clear that had to be the focus of our Learn pillar. And frankly, I think it's the most important work that we are doing today. I was with the Currys last week, and they were talking about how this is the most important thing that they have going on in their life. In Oakland right now, not unlike what we saw tonight in the film, we've got 40% of students in Oakland public schools reading 2 or more grade levels behind. And so we've done a lot of work as we've tried to wrap our arms around the public schools to try to transform that experience for this generation of kids, to understand, where can we have the greatest impact? And what we heard from community leaders, experts, parents, teachers is that tutoring, high-dosage tutoring is the intervention that time and time again works. But it's also very expensive. And so, the school district, because it's so expensive, they didn't even have a strategy. And so what we're doing at Eat, Learn, Play is essentially trying to provide professional, one-on-one, high-dosage tutoring for this generation of students who are furthest behind. Aisha talked about it at the beginning of the film, but for us, that means raising and investing $25 million over the next several years so that 10,000 kids have access to year-round professional tutoring. It feels like a calling to the Currys and to us, and our attitude is if we can get it right in Oakland, then we can be powerful advocates and storytellers for this issue more broadly. Aisha talks all the time about how it takes a village, right? We're trying to be that village for this generation of kids in Oakland, But when you ask about nonprofit organizations, or really anybody in this room, like, I think we can all be part of this village that everybody, can bring their talents and their resources in some way to make a difference, because, we've seen tonight just how important that is.
Well, and it's pretty awesome for them to lend their name and support to this effort, and then to have Steph, be the narrator throughout the film, just adds a whole level of kind of gravitas to the seriousness of the issue.
Yeah, and I just want to underscore, they do so much more than, put their name or narrate. Like, they underwrite all of our foundation's work, but Stefan's the son of a school teacher. They've got 4 kids who are all on their reading journeys right now, and I mean, they live and breathe this work and are very hands-on.
And talking about living and breathing this work, David Bank, you're obviously the Chancellor of New York Public Schools. NYC Public Schools launched, I understand, the NYC Reads Initiative last year to ensure that New York City children in their early years and early grades receive instruction and supports rooted in the science of reading that prepares them to become strong readers. What are some of the things that you learned about early literacy as a teacher, school leader, and the leader of the country's largest public school system? And what do you think more education leaders need to know to be able to address this challenge?
Yeah, so thank you so much. First of all, let me just say a couple of things. I appreciate the invitation to be here. I think this is such an important forum, and I think as we move forward with whoever wins this election, a focus on education is critical for our nation's future. And I don't think there's anything that's more important than early literacy and making sure that our kids are on grade level by the 3rd grade, as it was fully illustrated in this film. If you don't do that, everything else we're doing, we're spending lots of dollars and resources playing catch up, and you never fully catch up anyway. And generally, you're kind of playing around in the margins. I'm a product of New York City Public Schools as well. I'm born and raised in Brooklyn and then Queens, my mom and dad raised 3 boys. I'm the oldest of 3, and I raised 4 children who've all gone on to graduate from college. So being successful in school, working hard, doing the things that we needed to do is just been part of the way my family raised me and what I tried to do. But I was also a teacher in the New York City Public Schools. And while I was teaching, I saw how at that time, we were shifting from kind of an age-old focus on phonics and how you decode words, and we were shifting at that time to something which came to be known as balanced literacy, a whole language, which in my mind, and I think the data is in that supports it, has been a failed approach across this nation for how we should be ensuring that our kids can read. So just think about this. One of the lessons that we learned as relates to your question is you got to take a look at the data, right? So New York City, the largest school system in the nation by far, when I became chancellor, 51% of all the kids in New York City public schools were not reading on grade level. And when you disaggregate that data, 64% of black kids not reading on grade level, 63% of Latino students in New York City. We have a $40 billion annual budget. And 64% of black kids can't read, fundamentally. But then as we looked at the data across the nation, we recognized that we were in good company. Because if you look at the city of Philadelphia, 66% of the kids in Philadelphia, the entire school system of Philly, not on grade level. 80% in Chicago, and over 85% in the city of Detroit. Just wrap your mind for a moment around some of those numbers, because you need to. If 85% of the kids in your school district can't read, what is the purpose of the school district? If we can't lay out a fundamental promise to parents, that if we can't promise you anything else, we have to be able to promise that your child will learn to read. I don't care what level of poverty, where mom is, where dad is. We should be able to ensure as a school system that your child will be able to read. And we've not been doing that all across America, but I've got news for you. And what we also found out, it's not the teacher's fault. And it is also not the parents' fault. And it is not our kids' fault. We have given, over the last 25 to 30 years across the school system in America, we gave our teachers a failed playbook on how to teach kids to read. A very fundamental approach. I could introduce you to hundreds and thousands of teachers at the high school level who have no idea how to teach a kid to read. And they assume that kids are supposed to learn to read in the elementary level, correct? Well, I saw firsthand, as a fourth grade teacher, kids who were showing up in my class who could not read. And so the fourth grade teachers blamed the third grade teachers. The third grade teachers blamed the second grade teachers. Second grade blamed first grade blamed the kindergarten teachers, and the kindergarten teachers blamed who? Said, my fault that the kids didn't know their numbers and their colors before they got here. So it's been a blame game all across America that needs to stop. One of the first things that we have done when we introduce NYC Reads is to say that the blame game stops. We're going to ensure that every child in New York City by the third grade is on grade level, and we're doing it through our approach of the science, focused on the science of reading. We no longer consider it acceptable to allow every school in the city to say, we're going to have our own approach, and because we know our kids best. That's a bunch of malarkey. Teachers needed a blueprint, and they needed to be on the same page. You can't ensure a level of responsible professional development for teachers across an entire system if everybody is just doing their own thing. And so now we chose one of 3 different curriculums that are based in the science of reading. We have leaned into that. We have 3K and pre-K programs as part of our early childhood that are all working from the same curriculum. So I could take you into a class in Staten Island, and you could leave and go to a place in Brooklyn, and the students are learning from the same exact lesson. Every preschool teacher across the entire city has been grounded and trained in the same approach. So even if you move from Brooklyn to the Bronx, you can pick up from wherever you left off. This helter-skelter approach that we have used does not work. It's being done all across America. It doesn't have to be that way. Yeah. And finally, I would say the reason why we know that it works, because if you look at places like Mississippi and Tennessee, they have already started this work. Mississippi, for decades, was the worst, lowest rated state in the entire United States. And they have leapfrogged most of the country because they committed to the science of reading. Other states would say, at least we're not as bad as Mississippi. Well, you can't say that anymore because they turned it around. And we've learned that it doesn't mean your test scores are going to change overnight. They won't. It takes time. But you have to be committed to being on the right track, and that's what we've committed to doing.
Real quick, and I'll get to Jeff.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And David, how many years are you into that shift, and are you starting to see the results yet?
Yeah, just in our second year, and in fact, last year we only rolled out half the districts for New York. So just this September, as we just launched over the last couple of weeks, the entire New York City school system is now in the game, and every teacher and every elementary school teacher has now been trained. They get ongoing coaching throughout the year. We are locking arms with our union, which when I became chancellor, people said that's always going to be your biggest challenge, the unions. The unions have been our biggest allies. In fact, I don't think you can do this work in a deep way unless the unions are partners with you. So not only our principals union, our teachers union, the UFT, the largest teachers union in the country, they have been saying, we've been wanting to do this for years. They've locked in with us. We do all the training with them. So we can't afford to have anybody on the sidelines. And it's not just the teachers. It is the other organizations like what you're doing in Oakland. I see my good friend Darryl McDaniels from the world-famous Run DMC, who's here today, who's committed his life. He's committed his life to this work and to literacy and students who have dyslexia. We've launched significant programs and how we identifying kids with dyslexia, and not just identifying, but giving them the proper interventions that are needed. Teachers have to be trained in how to do that. And that's what I think all across America, we're just saying it should be better. We've got to be better. It's bigger than that. I met with the head of every school of education that feeds all the teachers that we receive in the New York City schools. And I let them know, this is the track that we're on. We want teachers in your pre-service programs who are committed to the science of reading. And if you don't do that, that's fine. We can't make you do it. But just be clear, we won't be accepting any of your candidates from your school. We want to dance with the people who are going to be prepared to dance with us. We're serious about this. We're not playing. Our kids cannot afford for another generation of what you've been seeing.
Good. Good. Thank you. Jeff,
Are you really going to make me follow this?
I am, because you produced the film.
Oh, great.
Right? And you would have tons of, I watched for the first time. You would have insights. I was struck by, to a degree, the intimacy of it. Right? You were able to take us into these pretty deep into these people's lives. And I was struck by, at a high level, there's a lot of alienation between me and them. I don't even have relationships with, folks that are having those struggles. But also, you get a sense for all the love and the community that they're all in. So it was a beautiful job, Jeff. Incredible. And I know in the credits there was a lot of Martin, so I know a lot of your family was involved. I guess my question, as a producer of the film and a longtime literacy champion, what are you hoping to accomplish through the film and through your organization, the Children's Literacy Project?
Well, we're trying to depress a nation. No. First of all, I was pointing at the filmmakers, and I'd like to respond to your first line. Connor Martin is my son, and thank you, Kalina, for mentioning all the Martins that are on the credits. His partner is a man named Mark Allen Johnson, and Mark is a photojournalist who will go anywhere to get any story. And when we started considering how to show America the impact of illiteracy, we realized we're just filmmakers, just dumb filmmakers. We thought, wait, there are no illiterate children. They're children. They haven't learned to read yet. We're not labeling 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds illiterate. It's when they're adults, when it matters, that all of a sudden they're incompatible with society, that they're illiterate. And so we had to show the story of adults. And Mark said, I know a man in South Central Los Angeles who can't read and fixes cars, and he's a good guy, and we should go hang out with him. And Mark doesn't take pictures until he hangs out. And then my son Connor would start to go out to South Central without cameras to meet the family and hang out and build trust. We talk about the generosity of our donors and of the business community and of the tax base, but those people in that film gave us their lives. And I have some news for you. Yes, Fuji died, but a few weeks ago Anna died. And Ruben reached out to us, the filmmakers. There's an integrity issue associated with paying for stories in documentaries, so we don't do it. But the documentary's done, and there are nonprofits surrounding this project, and we're going to try to help Ruben, who has asked for help. He's in New York, and we're going to find somebody to help him catch up with his life. And Eatlearn Play is going to help us, and we're going to figure it out. The generosity of sharing those stories is as significant a thing as you can imagine. And what we realized is that we weren't making just a film about illiteracy. We were making a film about the intersection of generational poverty. And we have some experts in our lives in the space of generational poverty, and we've been told, thank you for your comments, because we've been told they've never seen a deep dive into making that real on the screen like Mark and Connor did. We see poverty, we see it on the streets, and that's typically situational poverty. That's people who have fallen from a perch of some kind. And the families that you met in this film, and that America's going to meet in this film, God willing, this is what generational poverty is. This is why it's so hard, the work that the Chancellor's doing, the work that Eat, Learn, Play is doing. And we are here to answer your question, finally, we are here to stir the pot. We are here to help every literacy partner that we can help with our film, allow them to use it to advocate, to recruit volunteers, to raise money. We're not literacy people. We're people of faith who think America needed a wake-up call. Do you know that we are 125th in the developed world in literacy? 125th. It's ridiculous. This is look where we are. Look who's in this room, and that's outrageous. And we thank you. We demand so much better that the adults take over and stop making excuses, because this is you're seeing what we're allowing to happen. And we're so thankful, by the way, I don't believe we'd be here if it wasn't for Kalina, who introduced us earlier, and getting us connected to the Currys. If I had imagined as a filmmaker that, hey, I've got a great idea, let's make a documentary film about illiteracy that, of course, turned into another film about generational poverty, and we'll get an unbelievable superstar to narrate it, and then we'll premiere it at the Library of Congress. They would have called me a liar. And so we've watched miracle after miracle occur connected to telling this story. And every day, a new thing happens that encourages us that we were meant to make this film. We were given these stories, and we're going to use them to help everybody on the stage and everybody in this room. If it helps, and if it doesn't, we'll go to the place where it does. So our job is to make America care about literacy again. That's what we're trying to do.
We're wonderful. To close us out, and I think that we'll stick
I've
around.
got some. I'm supposed to. David just yelled at me, and he's your friend, so I get a pass.
Yeah.
See, I get all passionate, and I forget my job. We're announcing we've been granted a $1 million award for us to help disseminate to people who are innovating in the cause of literacy. It's a challenge grant, hoping we'll find another $2 million in the coming years or months, and we're gonna surface great innovation and great individuals who are doing extraordinary things. And we're gonna help them. We're gonna resource them with some funds, and then through the work that we do, because we're trying to connect the literacy universe, the people in the literacy universe, into one national database, and we're going to connect those people to greater success for their innovations. And so we are very excited about this award and how it's going to create a greater national conversation to go along with our
So
film.
to understand, so $1 million award for folks that's going to be given to folks that are innovative.
$1 million that we will use to award many people across who are innovating and agitating for the cause of literacy.
And hold up the good ones. That's
So if anybody has $2 million, it would be handy now.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I'm gonna have you everybody stay put. And to close us out, though, Ralph, if you would come to the stage. You all met Ralph Smith earlier this evening. Ralph is the managing director for the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, a network of more than 5,000 nonprofit organizations working in 350 communities across the country to help children be ready to read by the third grade. He's a distinguished career in teaching, education, nonprofit, and law. Ralph, would you come and close out our evening together?
Ralph told me to come, so I'm coming too. You know, I said we would blow up the script and the run of show. But the first thing I've got to do is say thank you to this wonderful panel. Thank you. I know of Chancellor Banks. I've met Chancellor Banks. The very first breakfast we had, I left and I said, we're going to see history being made. And Chancellor, I am so glad you're in the great city of New York with the job you're doing. Congressman, he actually said good things about you, which may surprise you. You know, something about the Campaign for Grade Level Reading is we like to say that we are clear-eyed and we follow the data, but that we are also optimistic and we look for the good news. And where's Kerry Rodriguez? Where's Kerry? Would somebody give Kerry a microphone, please? Because, you know, the Chancellor Banks said that there was a visceral punch, and we all felt it. This is a moment for some good news. Kerry, give us some good news.
Well, hi, my name is Kerry Rodriguez, and I'm Matthew, Miles, and David's mom. David is right here. I'm also blessed to be the president of the National Parents Union. We're an organization that represents 1,800 affiliated parent advocacy groups in all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico, and reach about 20 million families across the country. Just yesterday, after a 2-year effort where we have brought together thousands and thousands of parents down here in Washington, D.C., we were able to do something that I think is pretty unprecedented during a uniquely painful political moment, which is bipartisan agreement in the United States Senate in the filing of a joint resolution, literally just introduced yesterday. 16 United States senators, after thousands of parents came down here to Washington, D.C., with all of their literacy data, saying we want change. The fact that 83% of American families believe that we should have a national effort to make sure that every child in America is proficient in reading by the 3rd grade. This needs to be acknowledged as a national crisis and addressed as such. Finally, yesterday, introduced in the United States Senate as a resolution, 16 members, bipartisan, Republicans, Democrats, when confronted with this data, came together and said, yes, we are going to do this. We're going to acknowledge this crisis and make sure that federal resources are now allocated in order to make sure that all of our literacy funding is going to programs that are based in the science of reading, and that we challenge this, we challenge ourselves to address this. So I just want to say on behalf of my constituents, which are about 20 million families across the country, we are with you. We want to make sure we are holding our elected officials accountable for this. And Congressman, you will see us very soon with a lot of families.
You know, this is a moment for us to say thank you. And when I say thank you, the people who work with me run for the door, because they know my thank you has very little to do with what has happened and a whole lot to do with what we expect. So David is here to say thank you. I'm here to say, Jeff, you have issued a call to action and a call to advocacy. On behalf of the stakeholder coalitions in 350 communities across the country, the Campaign for Grade Level Reading accepts that call. Yes.
We, of course, want to emphasize again our gratitude to the Library of Congress for the hard work of Nikhil and Jamal and Roswell, for your colleagues at the campaign, for Sarah, and especially Dr. Joy Moore, who is here. Where's Joy? Who made sure that her son, the governor of Maryland, delivered some really great remarks at the close of that. Joy, we are so grateful for your leadership. And Kalina, please convey our deep gratitude to both Stefan and Aisha Curry for their great work and their significant contribution and just their continued leadership and advocacy. And share with them the spirit of this panel and the spirit of this room. So we thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.